welcome to Conversations with CardFlight. I'm Derek Webster, and here with me today is Liz Ryan, who's the Executive Vice President and Wholesale Merchant Services Executive at Wells Fargo Merchant Services.
Yeah.
Welcome, Liz.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I'm super excited.
Excellent. So to get started today, could I ask you could you share a little bit more about your role at Wells Fargo Merchant Services and the team you lead?
I'd be happy to. Sure. What we do at Wells Fargo is we've got two different segments. We have a wholesale segment and we have a community bank segment. And I support the wholesale segment, which is our relationships that we either have a direct relationship with or an indirect relationship with our PayFacs, service providers, third-party processors. In addition to that, we also have what we call our BIN sponsorship relationships, which are our non-FIs that we sponsor into the card networks, and we're the back end for them.
Perfect. And how did you get started in this industry, and how did it lead to the role you're in today?
Well, it's a little known fact, but once upon a time, I carried the bag back in the 80s. So I worked for what was
selling, knuckle busters or electronic, like the original terminals. Okay.
Yeah, the Verifone terminals. So worked for a company called Norwest Financial, which is obviously now part of Wells Fargo. And I called on companies, which was in our middle market segment, and back then it was getting folks off of paper, if you can believe that. I mean, I don't know if you remember the time when twice a month the card network would send out a booklet, all 16-digit numbers on the booklet of cards that had either been lost or stolen, and that's how we combated fraud. And so at the time, what we were trying to do is get folks off of the paper and onto some type of dial-up. So it was the Verifone bricks, as we used to call them, that we were trying to get folks to move over to. Back then, we would consider that the electronic era, if you will, and then obviously fast forward to the internet time. But 3 years ago, I was asked if I would step into a role over in merchant services where we would transform the business. We knew we needed to do it because there's a lot going on in the industry in general, and payments is core to what we do at Wells Fargo.
Wonderful. And fast forwarding a little closer to the present, but maybe not immediate present, what are some of the ways you've seen this industry change the most over the past 3 to 5 years?
Clearly, I think there's a lot of tension on the ecosystem. And the tension's coming, I would say, in a variety of different ways. Technology, I think the advent of technology in a number of different ways has proliferated, I think, the opportunity for more people, more organizations, more companies, more sole proprietors to get online and to have an easy and convenient way to accept payments. And I think that's good for our ecosystem. I would say, alternatively, some of the things we've seen is maybe bad actors also think that there's easy prey, if you will, in the ecosystem. So I think fraud continues to be something that we pay close attention to in the industry, and I think the advances in technology are really creating terrific opportunities for a lot of different organizations, whether you're small or tall, to accept payments.
Wonderful. And what about for the next 3 or 5 years? What are some of the biggest changes you're anticipating and planning for, or even bringing about?
Yeah, I think for us, we are the 5th largest acquirer in the industry. So I do think our scale affords us the opportunity to distribute technology in I would say a simplified way, right? And so I think one of the things that is going to be pretty pronounced is, what does that customer experience feel like, right? And how do we simplify the onboarding process for our new customers, right? How do we make it easier for their customers to do business with them? And then ultimately, how do we give them back their funds in a faster way? And how do we make sure that their money is working for them?
Wonderful. Now, there's thousands of different banks and financial institutions in the U.S., the vast majority of which are not directly involved in merchant acquiring, the way Wells Fargo Merchant Services is. Could you talk for a little bit about kind of the opportunities and challenges that come with being a bank-owned merchant acquirer?
Sure. I think from our vantage point, when you look at Wells Fargo, right? I think Wells Fargo is a diversified financial services firm. That's how you should think about it. It's not just a bank. So when you look to us, one of the reasons companies will choose us is because we not only do their cards for them, but we do their cash for them, we do their checks for them, we do their wires for them, we do their ACH for them. So this ends up being nothing more than an adjacent competency to how they collect payments.
And so obviously there's a lot of changes happening in the industry. What change are you paying the most attention to right now?
I think there's a couple of things that we spend a lot of time thinking about. I would tell you what's going on the government side, whether it's at the federal level or it's at the state level. There's a lot of conversation around privacy, which is obviously very important to us. There's a lot of conversation around what's going on with the tax liability side for our customers accepting payments. And there's a lot of conversation going on around how to make sure that we combat or mitigate fraud, right? All of those things, I think, are pretty important to us to make sure that we ensure the safety and security of the ecosystem.
And final question.
Yep.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about this industry, what would you change and why?
I think it's probably extracting the complexity. If you think about it, our customers, they're very focused on their business. They want to grow their business no differently than we want to grow our businesses. And so if you start from that tenet, an outsider who doesn't know a lot about payments, it can be somewhat complex. And there's a lot of rules and regulations governing our ecosystem, which is for the most part good, right? But I do think there's a lot of complexity to it. So I would like to wave my magic wand if I
simplify
could,
things
and simplify things.
Wonderful. Well, Liz Ryan, Executive Vice President and Wholesale Merchant Segment Executive at Wells Fargo Merchant Services. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Conversations with CardFlight. For more great conversations, be sure to follow CardFlight on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you.